and
Good.
very,
Oh, we did it again.
we did it again.
Go, go ahead.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. This is Free Range. Uh, if you're lucky.
Yeah, my internet is awful today, and I am awful today. I will be honest about that. So, guide the show. I sent
Connection.
a list of topics that I got from ChatGPT. She does not want to discuss them. So, Natasha, what's on your mind today?
Well, Carl was very kindly sent me a list of things to discuss. One of them was that
Be afraid if you
um,
introduce the list, we'll end up discussing it. So, you might as well move on to what you do want to discuss.
well, actually, I will discuss that, even though I said it was obscene to discuss it.
Yeah.
Apparently, there are two different numbers as to how many Jews were massacred in concentration camps.
Right.
And I want to discuss that,
Okay.
not because I want to discuss the number of Jews massacred in concentration camps, but more because more than zero is revolting.
That's how I feel about all war.
Exactly. So whether it was 6 million, whether it was 4 million, whether it was 3 or 2, the fact that we are discussing millions is it do you know what it it ban okay, banal is not an English word, so that's not going to work, but it makes every person that died there insignificant. It's just a number. It doesn't matter. It's part of a whole thing. It's, how can we even discuss whether it was 6 million or I don't know what the other number is, so it doesn't matter.
271,000 from the Red Cross. Well, the reason people are discussing it
Well,
is,
we know it's not 271,000 because there were more than 271,000 gold bands in the wedding ring thing
well,
at Auschwitz alone.
yes. I mean, but wedding bands and shoes, that's, I'll tell you how this came up and why this came up. It apparently was, people are feeding into ChatGPT the numbers in order to cremate 6 million people. How many hours would it take? And it turns out it would take far more hours than the war exists in order to cremate 6 million people with the number of crematoriums that are supposedly done, that supposedly existed. So then the Red Cross got into the game on Twitter and said, well, our numbers are 271,000, and it would have been completely possible based on this math model. And so people were discussing that on Twitter, and ChatGPT said it was the number one topic this week.
Okay. I ask you a question.
Sure.
Are we talking about, and this we know, men, women, children, babies thrown alive in ovens? Or are we talking about cockroaches? Because if we're talking about cockroaches, I'll be happy to debate whether it was 6 million, 3 million, or
Well, it's not
200,000.
a matter of debating it. It's just a topic that's
No,
come up
yes,
in a
absolutely.
big way. And the point of the topic isn't, the numbers as much as it is if, and this is if we've been lied to about this number, what else have we been lied to about? And that's why people are heavily discussing these things, because history, as you know, is written by the victors, and a lot of it has been lies, and we have found that out over the years. if one thing is a lie, how many other things are a lie?
Okay.
That's what's concerning.
I've been to Auschwitz.
So far.
I've seen the scratch marks, the
I
wedding
don't know if you.
rings, and all this stuff. Okay.
Mhm.
I've seen the ovens. I've seen the torture rooms. One is too many.
I agree that one is too many, but the point isn't whether it was this number or whether it should have happened. I don't think nobody that's even discussing it is in support of it, that then or now what's going on in the world, which is frightening beyond words. But the point is, if lies are being told about history, what other lies have been told?
We can discuss the number of soldiers killed.
Oh, millions.
We can discuss the number of civilian killed. We can discuss the number of cities that were bombed on both sides for absolutely no reason. I'm thinking of Dresden and another one
Oh,
which I
yeah.
saw recently, which was literally bombed by the Brits just before the end of the war for absolutely no reason. We can discuss all this. Genocide, we will never discuss
Well,
because there are people out there,
mhm.
many people out there, who are Holocaust deniers, and we cannot give
You
them
know,
more fuel.
I've heard that many times that they're Holocaust deniers. I've never personally met anyone that denied it. Um, so I don't know those people. I don't know
Well,
where they are.
I haven't met anyone personally that deny it, and I know this because I haven't been thrown in jail for murder, which is what I would have done.
No, you wouldn't murder anyone because you're not
Oh,
for that kind of thing.
yeah. Remember, I am for the death penalty, so
You are? Oh, I'm so not. Except for in the case of all of our presidents, that from Bush to Biden and to Trump, in that case, I think the death penalty is okay. But for actual people, no,
yeah, and I am. So,
no. The reason I'm not is because we know historically that so many people have been killed who were later proven innocent by DNA evidence.
oh,
And
absolutely. I agree with you.
in Texas
And
alone, it's about 4,000 black men who were murdered by the death penalty. And the death penalty doesn't solve anything. It costs more to kill somebody than it does to keep them in prison for their life. And it isn't a deterrent. It hasn't helped. The number one country for crime and serial killers is the US, and they put serial killers to death and they keep happening. So it's not a deterrent. It doesn't help in any way, shape, or form.
well, maybe. And I agree. My mother-in-law was just watching. They have a show on right now, which is about Ruth Ellis, who was hanged, the last
Mhm.
woman hanged in the UK, and
Right,
of course, she should never have been hanged. It was utterly ridiculous.
right.
She killed a man who'd been abusing her for ages.
Now that's a topic we can dig our teeth into. I think any man who abuses a woman or a child should be shot in the head and buried in the backyard with no
Uh,
repercussions to the family. So that is one case where I'm with you on the death
you
penalty.
see, you see. Now I'll give you another example. For instance,
But I'm not for the government enacting it because the government cannot be trusted. They execute innocent people, and they have routinely ever since the death penalty has existed. The US government has executed innocent people. So I'm not for the government doing it, but if a man is abusing a woman, yeah, she should pick up a gun, shoot him, bury him, be done.
the um, God, what were the name of the two Yorkshire murderer?
Which murderer?
The man and the woman. I think his first name was David, and hers was uh, starts with an M. It'll come back to me. Anyway, it was a nice couple who kidnapped children, tortured them, recorded the torture, and were finally, I think they did that to 6 people. Somebody, of course, is going to remember their names. I have a small blank. And they were jailed, okay? And
Right.
they were jailed for life. He died in prison. Well, they both died in prison, but he died in prison, never once repenting or feeling sorry or anything. But she did. As she grew up, Myra Hindley. She was Myra Hindley, I think, with the D in the middle.
David Allen Turpin?
I don't know, but she was Myra Hindley, Myrahindley.
Huh.
And
I remember David Turpin and Louise Ann Turpin in California.
no, that was in the
Okay.
UK.
Okay. This was California. I remember them. They tortured
Oh, there are
13
12
kids.
kids. Yeah, that one. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
that was recently. No, Myra
Yeah.
Hindley was in the 60s.
Okay.
And anyway, she went to jail, and she distanced herself from her partner. Among other things, they were in different jails, and she felt really, really, really sorry for what she did, and she became a good girl. And a lot of people wanted to free her
Right.
because, she was very sorry for what she had done. Now, you see, when you take people like that who wanted to free her, what I wanted to do was lock them in a room with the recordings and have them listen to those kids, children, 6, 7, 8, plead for their life, screaming for their lives while being
They made
tortured.
recordings of the kids?
Yeah.
They would probably enjoy watching those recordings.
No, I'm not talking about Myra Hindley. I'm talking about the people who pleaded for her release.
Okay. Okay.
Okay? She's not in jail for who she is today. She's in jail for what she did before,
Right.
And I don't care if, since coming to jail, she has become literally a saint and saved lives and whatever, whatever, whatever. Couldn't care less. Okay? She's in jail for what she did, and there is no way she could get pardoned. That's my view on things. My view on things, of course, is she should have been brought to the moors and shot.
See, I'm not for the death penalty, only because the state, especially in the US, has killed so many innocent people. We cannot trust the justice system because it's justice only for the rich, not for the poor. So that's why I'm against the death penalty. If one of the kids were given a gun and they shot her, I'd be okay with that. But I don't want the state making those decisions because they do them badly and they kill innocent people.
Okay, well, I have the counterpoint. Okay. Myra Hindley was sent to jail for life, and her partner, whose name I forgot, but the trash guy. Anyway, that means that everybody in the UK paid for her stay.
Yeah, but I mean, if prisons weren't privatized, that would actually be pretty cheap.
But well, in the UK, they're privatized. They're not privatized. They're state run. All the prisons.
Okay.
And Adam's aunt, or Adam's mother's brother's wife, was on the head of the parole board. So not many people went past her. That's probably the only thing I agree on with her.
Well, worldwide, 40,000 individuals have been documented as proven innocent after execution.
Yeah,
These are high-profile cases: the U.S., China, the U.K., and Australia. Those numbers are staggering.
I agree with you. I totally agree with you.
That's why I cannot support the death penalty administered by the government.
Okay, okay. Sharon Tate, the Mason family,
Yes,
Charles Manson, the Manson
right.
family, Charles Manson. Okay.
I know.
One of them, they all got the death penalty. And then, of course, it all changed because California canceled the death penalty. One of them got paroled.
I did not know this.
She's free. She had the death penalty, rightfully so. She is now free.
Now, are you aware of Charles Manson's connection to the CIA's MK Ultra program?
I don't give a damn. Do you want to talk to Sharon Tate about his connections with the CIA?
I would want to talk to Sharon Tate about his connection with the CIA, because if he was manipulated, and there's a lot of CIA files that we're supposedly going to see, that by the CIA in order to turn hippies into killers as part of their mind control experiments, then who should be put to death, the CIA or Charles Manson?
Charles Manson.
I would say the CIA.
No, I would say Charles Manson. If you even begin to look at what those people did,
I
she
have
was
looked at, and as a matter of fact,
she was 8 months pregnant.
a good friend of mine was best friends with Abigail Folger. I know exactly what happened. I know the details.
Exactly.
And I think
one of
if
them
the
was
CIA
pardoned.
was manipulating this family in order to work on their mind control, which is what they were doing, then the CIA should be put to death, not Charles Manson.
This is a really good time to change topics marginally, because mind manipulation. Let's talk about mind
Let's
manipulation.
talk about it. We're all being manipulated through propaganda to some degree or another.
Well, let's talk about something rather specific, that
Okay.
something that we are both going to agree on.
Okay.
I don't know if you've noticed lately on exactly how many Muslims with cars have driven into crowds in Germany in the last 6 months.
I've heard of one incident.
Oh, okay. I think we're either up to 4 or 5.
Okay.
Since December. Okay. There was Munich, there was Magdeburg, there was, I forgot, a city somewhere in the middle. Anyway, there were a number of them. I think 4 or 5. Okay. This is where I joined your theory of mind manipulation. I believe that, I'll call it the KGB, because it is in effect the KGB. I
Right.
believe the KGB is going online on chat groups, finding Muslims who are, Jesus Christ, I'm on the 7th floor and there's a rope outside my window.
They're going to clean it probably.
Okay. We're going to play it cool. Okay. Anyway, so I believe the KGB is going online, going through chats, finding Muslims who are unhappy for one reason and the other, and goading them into, long-term manipulation to taking their cars and driving into crowds.
Okay, now here's an interesting statistic, and after many of these things have been reported, right? It turns out that they were reported wrongly. of the incident that you mentioned, 3 of them were Muslims, 3 of them were not Muslim, but reported by the press widely as being Muslim until a minor retraction was issued. So 3 of them were Muslim, 3 were not. There were 6 incidents in Germany.
Okay, well,
One was
maybe,
reported as Muslim, but decidedly not Muslim. He was Catholic.
okay, but I still think that it's mind manipulation.
It could be because it is a pattern, and it isn't like, most people wake up one day and say, I'm going to drive my car into a crowd.
Indeed. And the interesting thing, if you look at the results of the German election,
Mhm.
was, and we've discussed that before,
Sure.
the entire East Germany voted in majority for the AfD, and the entire West Germany voted in majority for the SPD,
Right.
or whoever won. I don't remember if it's the
Yeah, it
SPD
was
or
it
the
was
SPD.
it was one of the socialist democratic parties, right?
Yeah, something like this. So, oh, it could be the CDU, but anyway, it doesn't matter. But the point is, East Germans are still East Germans, and they voted AfD. They wanted all the immigrants out of the country.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and
Yeah, I know. And now there's a proposal to increase the language requirement, which would basically um, eliminate everyone that isn't born in Germany from the possibility of citizenship.
that's very true. You mentioned something about a proposal talking about C1.
Right. I passed the B1 test and I'm on track for citizenship. Now there's a discussion to raise it to C1, actually C2, which is essentially native level. You can't get there without having a German mother teaching you German. It's just, I won't say it's impossible, but having spent an entire year studying German and time before that and time after that trying to learn it, I barely passed the B1 test.
Oh, indeed. Adam has the B1. Nigel next door has the B2. But so it goes A1, A2, B1, B2, C1, C2.
Right.
That is basically that. And C2 is, I think it's important to show.
A gorgeous view and a man coming to clean your window, it looks like.
Yes.
Or maybe it's a
Okay.
woman. I can't tell. It's only feet.
Okay. And it's help. I mean, no, not help. Obviously, they're cleaning window, but Jesus, I wouldn't feel very comfortable cleaning window the way he's doing it.
I have been amazed at window cleaners in my life, hanging from a rope, cleaning windows, no platform to stand on, nothing. I feel like it's shockingly unsafe. However, they're not dying in record numbers, so it can't be as unsafe as I assume.
I'm on the 7th floor. Hello. So yeah, I'm on the 7th floor. And you're right, he's cleaning my window. And he's literally holding on with a harness, like as if he was abseiling down.
Hmm.
Pardon me.
That's all
Frog in
right.
throat.
You're making the sounds that I'm feeling, so it works for me.
No, it was just a frog in throat. That's all it was.
Okay.
Now my cat has just woken up, jumped off the bed, and is frankly crawling to the bathroom because he's just noticed there was a man outside our window.
And he doesn't like strangers outside the window.
Not on the 7th floor, he doesn't. No, not at all. Okay, I am suitably impressed.
Right. Huh.
Hmm.
This is terrific. Well, have a good time, window cleaner. Let's
Yes,
get
indeed,
back to the
indeed. Yes,
topic.
yes, yes. So we go back to the
So
topic.
it would essentially prevent um, any immigrants from getting German citizenship. And what's interesting about it is that it was not proposed by the AFD, but rather by the Democratic Socialists. Um, so the AFD, which we're told is anti-immigrant, did not make the proposed rule. The Democratic Socialists did, and that bothers me because people's official public positions are often not the way they behave or what they do. And we've learned that with every politician in the United States since the beginning of time. What they say and what they do are completely different. So the party that is publicly one way is, once they're in office, behaving another way. The AFD, which is publicly one way and accused of being even further one way, was not the party to bring that up.
Now, there's one point I disagree with you, where I disagree with you.
Okay.
Uh, you mentioned that um, it would be harder for immigrants.
Yeah, it would be.
Now, the refugees that come to Germany are given unbelievable support
I've
and
looked into that. It's not unbelievable, but yeah, they are given support. Yes.
and German classes like it's going out of style. I mean, intensive all-day German classes, and they learn to speak German at mind-blowing speeds.
Actually, they don't. They're given a 9 month class, and the majority of them pass the B1 exam. The majority, something like 72%. But that's not mind blowing.
They pass the B1 exam because it's only the B1 exam that's required right now.
Right. But the exam, um, for instance, if you pass the B1 at higher than 70%, then they will automatically give you the B2. Um, and if you pass that, then they automatically give you the C1 because they do want to know how much you've learned in these classes and how much you've learned on your own. And the fact is that most of them, 72%, are passing the B1, but with grades or with rates that no one's even bothering to test them for B2 because they're all below 80% with the B1. No one is passing it above 80%.
Okay, because that's all that's required.
I don't think so. I think
I think so
that's
because
all they can learn in a 9 month period. I mean, that's huge to get to that point. I got to that point, and honestly, if I were to try to have a conversation in German, it would be really hard for me because I got to that point in order to pass the test. But having my accent, the moment I start talking to anyone in Germany, they immediately switch to English.
that's very true. But your accent is English.
Yeah.
Their accent is Syrian, Afghan, etc., so on and so forth. So they're not going to immediately switch to Afghan or Syrian.
So that might be an advantage in that people are using German to communicate with them.
That's one thing. Another thing is they are trying to get the B1 so that they can ask for German citizenship,
Yes.
and they get the B1. If citizenship now requires the C1, they have nothing else to do but to learn the language
Well, why do they have nothing else to do?
because they're refugees.
And because they're refugees, they're not allowed to have a work visa. That's why they have nothing else to do. If we change that law and allow these refugees to work, give them the work visa,
Yeah,
even prior to their cases being fully settled, then it isn't all they would have to do.
no, but that opens another door and another discussion. But the reason people like Adam, Nigel, you, who have been in Germany for years, I mean literally years,
Yes.
yes, and have now achieved with great pride, and rightfully so, the B1 exam. In 6 years, which is how long Adam has been in Germany,
Right.
a refugee would be native speaking.
Maybe it depends on the age, the learning capacity, whether they have dyslexia
Yeah,
or other learning. Some of them could be, yes. But my response to that is, so what? By making the requirement higher, what you're doing is you're blocking out a lot of skilled people that have already achieved the B1 and are in track for citizenship. And you're saying only those who have nothing to do but study German can be citizens. That's not a good move.
and that is exactly what they're doing. I agree with you 1,000%. We are both on the same thing. It's not a good move. It's utterly ridiculous. Okay. So, what they've done so far, if the C1 were to pass right now, they have gotten rid of a lawyer, an engineer, and a multi talented chef and author.
Well, I mean, we would still be given a permanent residency visa.
Yeah, but this is what I'm saying. This is an example right there. If they were to bring it up to C1, they would get a whole bunch of refugees, for which I am delighted for them. Okay, don't get me wrong. Okay, I am delighted, but they would knock out the uh, Americans and Brits and Australians and Swiss and you know all the people who have higher education. Not that the Syrians and the Afghans don't have higher education or anything like that. Unfortunately, some of them are doctors and lawyers and all this, and they can't um, work in Germany because blah, blah, blah rubbish. Anyway, the point is, yes, they would block people like you, Adam, Nigel. That is, and Mike, IT engineer.
Mhm.
These are the kind of people they would block out if they requested a C1. And you're right, it is ridiculously badly thought.
Yeah, there's a lot of things happening politically around the world that are
Really?
ridiculously badly thought. In my,
Really?
oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. I mean,
We haven't
I'm,
even broached the American subject.
oh
We
yeah,
could do it.
so you hit me with something that I didn't even know about, something called the Signal scandal, and I learned very little about it. So why don't you set that up, because that's something that's happening in the United States.
Do you know, if I told you, you'd tell me I was lying, honestly. So,
Tell me anyway.
using Signal, which, as you know, is like a WhatsApp um, app, okay, it's apparently, I understand, a little bit less controlled by, you know, the CIA or whatever than other apps like
Right.
WhatsApp, who says it's encrypted at both ends, but who you fooling. So Signal is a little bit better on, or is deemed to be a little bit better. I don't know if it is. Anyway, so
Certainly.
it's very simple. Um, the Secretary of Defense, Mike Walsh, something
Hmm.
like this, in the United States, created a group,
Right.
on Signal, and he accidentally added uh, a gentleman called Goldberg, who is chief editor of the Atlantic.
Right.
Okay, and then they and a whole bunch of other people. Okay, a whole bunch of other people. But apparently, from what I understand, none of the other people were military. Interesting, but whatever.
Hmm.
And they went on to discuss a strike on Yemen, as in giving it the green light,
Right.
watching it happen, um, congratulating themselves on having uh, blown up a building and killing a large number of people. And
Yes.
that's all. All while this journalist was online following this.
Well, I'm glad. That's because maybe it will embarrass them into not murdering more people in Yemen for absolutely no effing reason.
Well, the thing, okay, I'm sure you remember the Clinton scandal when she used her own personal computer to send government emails.
Oh, yeah.
And Trump was all over this like a fly on doo doo.
Hmm.
Okay. One would think inviting a journalist into a conversation discussing confidential information involving American military troops striking in another country. One of the people on the chat was in Moscow at the time.
Right.
Okay. Um, and followed the whole chat. The whole chat is now visible on my Facebook page for starters, because I immediately put it there as soon as I got it. And they've all dismissed it like, oh, it was just a mistake. Trump tried to say it was a hoax, but then he backpedaled. Um, Absolutely nothing happened. Nobody was told off for it. Nobody was fired for it. Good God. It was just, and the Democrats are having a little bit of a WTF moment,
Hmm.
and yeah, it's being swept under the rug.
I've been really out of it this week. I have not heard a word about it, but I'm glad that their plans are being exposed because nothing, in my opinion, nothing should be secret when it comes to the government. There should be um, a web channel where every single phone call, every single text, every single email can be monitored in real time by anybody who's a citizen of the US. All of this secrecy and planning and plotting and murder that these criminals get away with, it's a group of psychopaths. And I think the more we see of how truly abhorrent they are and how abhorrent their behavior is, the more likely we are to have the kind of revolution that will lead to meaningful change.
Well, to be fair, I think we're more or less there with the president we have now. I mean, I think one of the things, the mistakes that we have is that we don't seem, or actually, we don't have a democratic leader at all. And
Well,
it's
the US has never been a democracy, so
no, but I mean Democrat as in opposite of Republican.
oh, okay.
You know, there's nobody that we can. There's nobody to go against him. There's
Hmm.
nobody that we can unite against the common enemy. You know, we all, when I say we, it's, I mean, if you have a look at my Facebook page, there is absolutely no, um, I don't think I would be admitted into the US right now for the next 4 years, which actually turns out pretty good because I don't think I'll be going to the US for the next 4 years.
I'm
Okay.
going in July, so hopefully I don't get into
Yeah.
nonsense there.
The fact that you're a US citizen doesn't mean anything. You could end up in El Salvador.
What we're seeing that going on now, college students are being abducted for criticizing Israel.
Yeah.
That's what's
Uh,
happening in real time.
and criticizing Israel and criticizing Trump.
I think it's only Israel so far. I haven't seen anyone abducted for criticizing Trump.
But they're US citizens sent to
U.S. citizens, green card holders, and immigrants have all been abducted from college campuses, which you
Yeah,
would think that the everybody would be, stopping work and out on the streets, and you
yeah, you would
cannot,
think,
and it's not happening.
and it's not happening. And everybody around the world is going, WTF? If
Yeah,
that were to happen in France, if that were to happen in England, if that were
Spain.
to happen in Spain, in Germany, in the Netherlands,
I don't understand how people are just going on with their day to day in the US with this kind of thing happening. Even the college campuses. And what's interesting is, so a student is abducted from a college campus for his protest, which frightens everyone else away from protesting because they don't want to be abducted. So it's kind of this is mind control in a sense. Let's get people so scared that they are going to be abducted and sent to a prison for having an opinion that they no longer will have an opinion. And that is, quite frankly, what's happening. The US citizenry is petrified.
yeah. And lest we forget, J.D. Vance came to Munich and told Europe that we did not have freedom of speech.
Well, he's not wrong about that. The UK has done some pretty similar bad stuff, arresting people for social media posts, for disagreeing with the government. I mean, the UK has got a really bad track record. So he's not wrong, but at the same time, he's not the right arbiter of free speech, right and wrong, because he's part of an administration that does not allow free speech at all, ever, under any
At all, at
circumstances.
all, at all, at all, under any circumstances. People have been arrested for bad mouthing Tesla. That has nothing to do with the government.
People were arrested for bad mouthing Tesla. Really? Who?
Um, in somewhere in the West.
Really?
Oh no, 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 no,
I
no,
mean,
no,
I
no,
know
no.
that someone was arrested for burning some Teslas.
No, somebody was arrested and called a terrorist for taking a baseball bat.
Ah, to a Tesla.
Whereas, yes,
Well, that
whereas,
should have been a vandalism charge
no, it
because
wasn't.
that's what it
Whereas,
is.
of course, the 6th of January people were called patriots.
The way I'm feeling right now, I wish somebody would storm the Capitol and take over the government because it's not working.
You think?
It's not. It's
It's not.
not. Well,
And
here's a
nobody's,
fun topic. Let's go somewhere fun for just a moment because I'm getting a kick out of it. Um, Snow White. One of the reviewers said, if I were to have seen this on an airplane, I still would have walked out.
I saw that review.
I love it. I love it. This movie apparently is the biggest cluster F that has ever been released by Disney. They rewrote the whole story. They made Snow White into a different character entirely, who takes the kingdom back from the queen and has everybody wear white and dance in the snow. I mean,
Yeah,
apparently it's just a
because her name
mess.
Snow White doesn't come for her skin is white of snow. It comes from the fact that it was snowing the day she was born.
Depends on which version of the fairy tale you read. In the original German, and it was one of my reading exercises in German class, was to read Snow White. Snow White's a vampire.
Oh, we didn't get that version.
She sleeps in a coffin. Her skin is as white as snow, and she gets her life back by taking the blood of the prince.
Oh, we didn't get that version.
Right. Yeah. Disney
I got
rewrote
the
it the first time, and they rewrote it in kind of a charming way.
no, I
Actually, it
got
was,
the Charles Perrault version. And Charles Perrault wrote it in 17 something.
yeah, it was rewritten many times from the original German. The original German fairy tales were cautionary tales about the horrible things that happen if you leave your parents, if this happens, if you do
Like
that.
Aesop's tales.
Yeah, they were not fun. And then they were rewritten and then published in a different version and a different version. Grimm's fairy tales, on average, each fairy tale has been rewritten 38 times. Depending, it was French, it was American, it was this, and it's different in different countries. I was with someone from Brazil last night, and in Brazil, Snow White does not have skin as white as snow. She has dark skin, and it is teeth as white as snow.
Oh, that makes sense.
You know, in Brazil, little girls want to see themselves in Snow White. So, you know,
Make
I
their
understand that.
yeah,
And it's
yeah,
fairy
yeah, yeah,
tales.
yeah. Yeah.
I take no issue with them being written and rewritten because the original German versions would terrorize modern kids. Honestly, having read both Sleeping Beauty and Snow White in school, they kind of terrorized me. They were not what I expected at all.
And Cinderella, there's a word. Well, it's not a word; it's a sound in French. Vert,
Yeah,
vert.
yeah,
It means green,
yeah,
glass,
yeah.
worm, towards. It's the name of a town. Um, it's a little animal that's kind of like an ermine. They all make the sound vert.
Yeah.
Okay, all of them.
French confuses me already, so that just made it worse. Thank you.
You're welcome. Now, Cinderella's slipper was made of vert.
Yeah.
Okay, and that is VAIR,
Hmm.
pronounced vert. And that is a kind of an ermine. It's a little animal, furry. So Cinderella's slipper was furry,
Not glass.
not
Ah,
glass. But of course, vert, spelled VERRE, is also glass. So when they translated, they took vert, VAIR, and translated it to glass because they took, vert, same thing, we'll translate it to glass.
interesting. So that's how she got the glass slipper. I always thought that would be incredibly uncomfortable.
Incredibly uncomfortable, but it wasn't. It was a little furry slipper that was very, very comfortable.
I'm sure. I mean, Ermine would have been great. And, you know, the stepsisters would have ripped the ermine with their big bulbous feet. Oh, interesting. Yeah, it's I love how things evolve. And this goes to one of my interests, and this is again not a harsh political topic, but um, people who claim to have invented recipes. Recipes are rarely invented, they are adapted. You know, I did not invent lamb bacon. I was credited for that in the press, but I did not invent it. I was not the first one to make it. I modified the recipe to make it taste really great. So I didn't invent it, even though the New York Post said I did. I changed the recipe. I made modifications to give it a really incredible flavor. And I won an award for it. And that's lovely. But I didn't invent it. I don't think I've invented any recipe. I have taken things that I know and changed them slightly.
Well, um, I think I invented a recipe.
Okay.
I have two versions, the vegetarian one and the non-vegetarian one.
What is it?
Okay, so you take a ramekin dish. So everybody gets a ramekin, right?
Right.
You take a ramekin dish, and at the bottom of the dish, if it's the non-vegetarian one, you may take two strips. It can be anything. Okay, it can be ham. I use smoked salmon, but two strips and put them in cross shaped at the bottom of the ramekin. They come up on the sides.
Hmm.
Okay. Um, and then in the ramekin, you put cream spinach, okay, but kind of dense, more not so creamy, but something that will hold, okay.
Hmm.
Then you break an egg, make a hole in the middle, and you break an egg. And then on top of that, you put a mixture of breadcrumbs and parmesan. Okay? So you've
Hmm.
got the crust at the bottom, the spinach, the egg, and breadcrumbs and parmesan. You cook it in the oven, bain-marie, in water.
Right. So similar to, yeah, creme brulee or something, right?
Yeah, exactly. While it's cooking, you make tomato, kind of a chunky tomato sauce.
Hmm.
Okay. When it's cooked, you take the ramekin out of the oven. Carefully take a very sharp knife and go all the way around the ramekin very carefully. Um, Empty it in a plate. Okay. Then you have, if you did the vegetarian way, you have a crisscross of carrot. If
Right.
not, it's either ham or whatever else you wanted there. And then you add the sauce all the way around.
You did not invent that recipe. That actually comes from Auguste Escoffier and
You see?
was published in Le Guide Culinaire in 1903. It included multiple versions: the smoked salmon, the ham, the bacon, cream, spinach, and he laid the groundwork for later variations.
Um, I know
There's
Escoffier, of
also a
course, in
recipe
French.
with the breadcrumbs on top, sauce, etc., in The Joy of Cooking, 1931.
Neither books I read. I just
There we
came
go.
up with
So
it.
you didn't read it. You invented it without knowing you invented it, but it wasn't original,
Indeed, indeed. But I wanted
which
to
is
show
often the
you,
case. Yeah.
yeah, which is often like exactly that, another
I
recipe I invented, which actually is a very simple recipe. You take uh, citrus juice, so orange, pineapple, not pineapple, pamplemousse, I meant to say, grapefruit, orange, grapefruit, lemon. You put it to cook, reduce it, okay, until it's kind of like a caramel
right.
consistency. You add uh, uh, um, scallops, okay, and cook scallops in there. So as you know, scallops can't cook for very long, shouldn't cook for
No,
very
very,
long.
very, very briefly. Yeah.
Exactly. So you cook the scallops in there. Okay. You've prepared a green salad before that. You add the scallops when they're cooked to the salad. You put in some oil of your choice in the pan, mix it as like a vinaigrette, and pour it over that.
Hmm. I'm writing this down. That sounds good.
Yeah,
I'm trying to think if I've heard of that. I mean, I know that I've had similar things,
indeed.
seafood cooked in citrus juice in French restaurants, um, but I don't know that I've had exactly that. I mean, it's a method of cooking that Julia Child published in 1961 to reduce the citrus juices and add seafood, but scallops, I don't recall. Um, I don't recall that. I recall, and sometimes, yes, being put over a bed of greens, sometimes, depending on the type of seafood. Let's see. So that may be yours. That may be yours.
Oh,
But it
I've
is, again,
invented a
it's not an
recipe.
invention. It's an
Modification.
adaptation.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an adaptation. So Erin French does one of those, but she doesn't use scallops. She does catfish, and she serves it in Louisiana. So scallops may be a very unique variation. I would like to try that. We can have it with the beef bourguignon you promised me about 100 years ago,
Yeah, that would be a nice starter.
wouldn't
Or
it?
or my my lovely ramekin dish.
Yeah, both would be great. I'm gonna see the ramekin dish reminded me of something, and it's very funny because about 20 years ago, I forgot which restaurant I was in, the country club. I started doing individual lasagnas, and I got the idea of doing them in a stainless steel bowl. So I would bring the noodles up and then, you know, sort of a pattern in the bowl with some sauce on the bottom. Then I did the layering through. Then I wrapped it all together and topped it with some more cheese, some more sauce, baked it, turned it upside down on the plate, and then hit it with Parmesan cheese, parsley or basil, whatever, so that it looked absolutely beautiful. These little round lasagnas. And I thought, you know, I was this great innovator. And then I saw a video from 50 years ago, someone doing the exact same thing. So even though I hadn't seen the video before yesterday, I,
Yeah.
I thought, okay, it wasn't new. It is a beautiful presentation of lasagna. However, if you want, everybody gets their little round. It's like their individual piece, and it's a beautiful way to present it. But it is not original.
No, and a ramekin dish is a wonderful way to do individual presentations of
I use a
just
lot of
about
them.
anything,
Yeah,
you know.
I have
And
about 20 from IKEA because I've done multi-course meals in ramekins.
yeah, and it's then you turn the whole thing upside down and looks pretty and everything, and to I could add, for instance, half a cherry tomato when I turn it over on the top,
Right. I,
that kind of
in
thing.
in Paris, I had a delicious one. They had just barely scrambled eggs, so they were super creamy. Put avocado on top of that, put smoked salmon on top of that, feta cheese on top of that, and then baked it for only enough time to warm the avocado and the feta. So maybe 10 minutes. Then they bring it to the table, turn it upside down, bring it out. The eggs are on top and they kind of ooze down the whole thing. It keeps its shape. It's beautiful. The feta cheese fans out on the plate. I mean, it was gorgeous. And I had that at a restaurant in Paris at lunch one day, and I thought, wow, this is cool. It was also incredibly delicious, and it wasn't expensive. It was, I don't know, €9 or something.
Yeah, but you see, the thing is, when you empty my ramekin, all you can see basically is the spinach, but in there is an egg, you
Right.
know, and if it's cooked correctly, the egg should be mole, not hard.
Well, this is before Donald Trump was running for president. All right. I had a dish in my restaurant, Nolan's in New York, that was called FU Donald Trump Mexican Eggs.
Oh, I love the title.
And what I had, well, he had made comments about Mexicans before his famous, speech, and had also abused a number of them by not paying them, bringing them up for illegal labor, not paying the contractor, all his normal
He never
stuff.
pays contractors.
Yeah, I know. And so I had taken bacon and lined a ramekin and then uh, filled it with refried beans, put an egg on top of that and put cheese on top of that, and then turned it over to serve for brunch. It was a beautiful little dish, crispy bacon on top, and the refried beans just they held their shape but not completely. So it sort of looked like a little bacon volcano. It ended up being a beautiful presentation. And I kept a copy of that menu just because people will ask me periodically, you like Donald Trump because you said something bad about Joe Biden. It's like, no, I hated Joe Biden. I also hate Donald Trump. They're both bad players. They're owned by the
Mm,
corporations. They're
mm,
owned by the
mm,
bankers. Neither of them
mm,
have a shred of integrity.
mm. I'm going to have to disagree.
Feel free.
I very, very, very much think that Trump is worse.
I do not. I think they're the same. I think Trump is more open and honest about it. He's more public about his misdeeds. He's more public about his prejudices. But I don't think he's worse. I think that Biden kept things hidden and we're
No, no,
finding
no,
out
no.
more and
I'm
more
talking
now.
about the United States. There has
I am
so
too.
far, in 45 presidents, if you count Biden, that came after between 45 and 47, so he would be the 45th.
46.
I'm not counting Trump at all. So
Oh,
excluding Trump, it's 45.
right. You can't. I mean,
Yeah, but
it was
I'm saying
46.
none of the other 45 presidents of the United States have done so much in just 2 months, 3 months to destroy the United States.
See, I think Biden in his first 3 months did just as much bad shit. It was
Mm,
just not publicized in the same way the propaganda press protected him. But when I say Biden, I don't mean Biden. I don't think Biden had any idea what was going on when he was in office. I think he had full-blown 100% dementia and could barely read words before he got into office. And someone, probably George and Alex Soros, based on what we're learning now, was running the country to their benefit.
Okay, but Biden did not arrest and deport scientists for having negative opinion of the president on their phone.
Well, Biden did, and Obama was considered the deporter in chief. But Biden's deportation record was, I mean, he did in 2024, there were 271,000 deportations. Trump's are more publicized, but Biden did deport scientists because he felt they were Chinese, supposedly Chinese nationals, and he believed that they had China's interests at heart. So he did deport scientists.
Well,
He
maybe he
removed
wasn't wrong.
Maybe he wasn't right. We don't know because they were
Yeah.
accused, never convicted. He deported 300,000 H-1B holders, skilled immigrants, which is huge, more than Trump.
Yeah. But
So
did
he
he send them
deported a
to
lot of people. The
did he
difference is
send them
that
to El
Biden didn't get
Salvador
publicized.
prisons?
I'm sorry?
Did he send them to El Salvador prisons?
Not to El Salvador, but he sent, let's see what the number are, because I actually pulled that up. This is something I have on my computer because I argued with people on Facebook about it. He sent 2,020 people to prisons without the benefit of a trial, including Chinese scientists who were at universities or national labs. They were questioned and removed over alleged, never proven, ties to military programs and imprisoned without the benefit of a trial or an attorney. And this came out under the Freedom of Information Act.
And they remain in prison?
They remain in prison to this day.
Hmm.
Yeah. So
Still,
I think the only difference is how the press covers the two people. The press, for whatever reason, seems to cover Democrats differently than Republicans. I think they're equally evil, equally bad, do just as many bad things, but you don't read about it when it's a Democrat. You read about it when it's a Republican. It's just a BS duopoly. They're not, neither one of them are in control, obviously. Trump doesn't have a thought in his head. He does whatever his corporate masters tell him to. And I think Elon Musk is his number one corporate master right now.
no.
Who's his number one?
Putin.
Putin isn't corporate. Putin is political.
Okay, well, Putin is his master.
I don't think Putin's his master at all. I think Benjamin Netanyahu is his master.
Well,
Putin has
they
a
could
tiny
be both. Yeah.
influence, but Benjamin Netanyahu is controlling Trump, and that's pretty obvious. Trump is Israel's bitch.
Okay, and Putin's as well.
When Putin
Yeah.
has come to the U.S., Trump doesn't pull the chair out or act subservient. He argues with Putin often, and we've seen it. We've seen it in what has been on television. I don't think Putin is his master. I don't. I think that Trump likes
What
Putin
about
in some way, But
But
that's
but
Trump's stupidity. I don't think Trump is controlled by Putin.
but we know that he's a Russian, what are they called? We know he was taken in by the KGB in the 80s, and we know that, and as a
How do you know
conspiracy,
that?
because it was discussed. I don't remember where, but it was completely discussed that
I
he's
know
a
that it was
he.
discussed. It was discussed by people that he might be, but there is no definitive or conclusive proof that Donald Trump has any ties to the KGB. Um, it was dissolved in 1991. The claims of those ties have been circulating for decades. Nonetheless, the number of classified documents have been released. No tie. First-hand testimony from active participants. No tie. Verifiable recordings.
That's not
No
true.
tie.
That's not true. I defer there. There are two different old KGB people who say yes, Trump was
Who are they?
taken. One is from, I'll send you the link. We'll discuss it later on. But it was even in the
Okay.
news. It
I
was,
know that it's in the news, but was it real? Remember, we live in a world of created propaganda. We
yeah,
don't
no, no.
know if things are real
If
just
you
because they're
look
in the
at
news.
what he did with Zelensky, who you don't like, maybe, but if you
I
looked
would
at
have
what,
done that with Zelensky, and I think Zelensky deserved it. The little um, shit
mm,
with his begging bowl needed to be sent packing. Almost every man in Ukraine has died on behalf of this war of ego because he did not do what he promised when he entered office, which was end the civil war and give the Donbass independence. That was his promise. That's what he didn't do. If he had done that, Putin never would have gotten involved. Zelensky is one of the worst of the worst of the worst and one of the richest of the worst. He has profited greatly while his people are dying, 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 dying. More than 2 million
I have
Ukrainian
a
men have
question for
died.
you. I have a
Yeah,
question for you.
yeah.
From what you're saying, it would seem that Trump is the only one who sees Zelensky for who he is, and every
No,
single
that's not what I'm saying. I don't think Trump
other
sees Zelensky for who he is.
and
I
every
think,
single other European leader is blind to this and
no, they're
welcomes
not blind. I
Zelensky
think
with
they're
open.
complicit. They want a war with Russia. How many times has Europe gone to war with Russia? They've never won, but they've done it many times. I think these European leaders are as corrupt as Trump. I don't think Trump sees through Zelensky. I think that his master in Israel told him, stop that one, give me the money so that we can continue to do this. And then you can have Trump hotels in Palestine, or what is now Palestine or Gaza. I think that's what it is. I think it's personal profit before anything. And if his leader in Israel said, end your relationship with Zelensky, I want that money, they got it. The only aid that was not cut off was aid to Israel. They've cut off aid to countries around the world, not to Israel. But Trump was only in Moscow once in 1997, and it was to explore a hotel deal, not to become a KGB asset.
Uh, we're gonna have to agree to disagree.
I
But
mean,
I
there's nothing to
find,
disagree. There's no proof whatsoever he was a KGB asset. None.
well,
There's
apparently,
conversations
there
about
is.
it, but by people who create propaganda. The US has done this since before the Cold War. They blame Russia for everything. Hillary Clinton blamed Russia for losing the election. You know, Hillary Clinton lost the election because nobody could stand her. She's just a toxic piece of work, and people saw through her act. That's why she lost the election, and she lost the election to someone possibly worse. But people hated Hillary Clinton. They hated her when she was a senator. They hated her when she was a first lady. They saw through her act.
I
She is a
agree.
warmonger like crazy. Um,
I agree
Trump
that
has
she was the wrong choice.
she was
She
terrible.
was
Um,
definitely the
Trump's
wrong
ties to the
choice.
Soviet Union, i.e., Russia, are very, very minimal. Even his business interest. He bought 200 TVs for the Grand Hyatt and made money on those. So the Grand Hyatt was having, during the Soviet times, the Grand Hyatts could not get the TVs
Pardon.
that they wanted into the Soviet Union. He brokered that deal. But that's about it. He really doesn't have ties to Russia. They're manufactured in order to make us fear Russia. I don't fear Russia. I've been there. I don't fear Putin. I listen to him. I listen to all of his interviews. I think he's an intelligent man. Is he the best person for
You know
Russia?
what?
Ask the Russians. But he's clearly intelligent with good knowledge of history.
You know what?
What?
We have actually reached a point in history where I fear Trump more than I fear Putin.
Oh, yeah, I fear Trump and I feel Netanyahu. I don't fear Putin. I never have feared Putin.
Now, I
Putin,
actually fear Trump more than I fear Putin.
look at Putin's accomplishments. He took a country that was the Soviet Union, essentially, and it was the standard of living was here when the Soviet Union dissolved. And Russia is now a major force. It's a strong economic force. Despite all the sanctions, Russia has managed to produce food in extraordinary amounts, export energy to Germany before the Biden team, whoever is in charge of that, I think it was the Soros father and son, blew up the pipeline. Putin has been incredibly successful for Russia and for Russians. I had two Russians on my tour last night, and I said, "Tell me how you feel about Putin." And they said, "We don't like him. We cannot stand him. But you cannot argue with his accomplishments. He has made Russia better for everyone. Everyone is better off in Russia now, but he's also a dictator. And
Yeah,
he cannot stand people who disagree with him. He does not like the press. So we cannot argue with his accomplishments. We can argue with his methods." And I said, "Okay,
true.
so
Yeah.
would you vote for him again?" And she got a look on her face and she said, "Actually, no one of value has run against him. So we might, but that's only because he suppresses the people who might have value running against him.
Yeah, he
So
murders
we
them.
never
Yeah.
have a choice." I think America's the same way. We never have a choice. The good people are destroyed by the political machinery and they
We
never get to the top.
we have a choice. Uh, Hear me through.
Okay.
Okay? We have a choice. The last election, for instance, they were offering us a man who said, "Make America great again," who made zillions of promises he had no intention to keep, but they were all great for the country, exclusively for the country. I
Right.
will make Detroit great again. I will bring back coal mines,
Right.
etc., so on and so forth. And his opponent, okay, and when I say that in the eyes of Americans, was a non white, non male opponent.
Blithering idiot.
How do you want her to have a sliver of a chance? Do you think Americans who just voted anti abortion, okay? The
Americans
Bible
did,
Belt,
the Supreme Court did.
yeah, but they're all happy with it. Well, not all,
No,
but
actually, even among the Republican Party, more than 80% believe in a woman's right to an abortion. So that is not correct.
yeah, but they're not doing much to fight it, are they? But so
Well, they're not doing
we
much in period. They're not doing much about students being vanished. They're not doing
no,
much.
they're not
They're
doing
staying
anything
home
at
and
all.
watching TV.
Yes, exactly. So in a sense, there was no choice. If they had put in opposition to Trump a white, middle-aged male, straight male, there might have been an opponent.
I don't think that Camilla was rejected because of her gender or her color at
I
all.
do.
I think
I do.
Camilla was rejected because she came across as a blithering idiot who could barely put a sentence together, who was also actively promoting genocide in Gaza. Trump lied, of course, claimed he would end that war, and people were very much about that. I voted for Jill Stein because I couldn't stand either one of those two monsters. I couldn't stand Holocaust Harris, nor could I stand crazy Trump. I knew he was lying about war, about everything. So I voted for Jill Stein, whom I believe is a woman of integrity. Would she have been effective? I have no idea. But I believe she had integrity. And I could not vote for either two of those nonsenses. But I'm
But
going to
yeah.
get, let's get back to Trump for 1 minute, because I pulled up the official investigations. I mean, his Russian ties, right? The
Mhm.
Mueller report. The Mueller report found Russia did not engage in a conspiracy with Trump in his campaign. There were 272 Russia-linked operatives, but none were tied to Trump or the KGB historically. The Senate Intelligence Report, this was the Democratic Senate Intelligence Report. They detailed depot ties like Paul Manafort's work with Konstantin Klimek, a Russian intelligence officer, and focused on the 2016 as well as the pre-1991 KGB activity. It called Trump a counterintelligence risk, but could come up with absolutely no ties to his being a confirmed asset. The Steele dossier, private intelligence report, was cultivated for years. The claims were that that Putin was controlling him with a P tape. They were discredited by the Department of Justice, Inspector Jennifer, as unverified Russian disinformation. No evidence of KGB ties. These are Democrats that went after him hard. The amount of money that was spent on trying to prove that Trump had KGB connections was, make a guess. How much money was spent?
5 billion.
19 billion to investigate his ties with the KGB, and they could not come up with one shred of evidence. Now, the one thing that they could come up with was one thing, and it was not proof of his ties to Putin or the KGB, but he did sell a house to Dmitry Rybolovlev for 99 million. The house was valued at 80 million. And so this guy paid 19 million more for the house than the value. Was it because the guy liked the house? Maybe. Or was it because the guy wanted influence? More likely. But this guy is an oligarch with business interests in Poland, Russia, Ukraine, and the United States, not directly a Russian oligarch, and has lived in the United States since 2008. That's
It
it.
doesn't matter if he has actually any ties with Russia. It doesn't matter at all. As a matter of fact, it might even have been beneficial had he had ties with Russia. It is just there are almost no words to describe what he is doing right now. It is revolting to such a degree that it is mind blowing. I mean, actually, he is attacking universities in the US, trying to
Yeah,
get rid of intelligentsia. In other words,
absolutely. And that includes professors, which was begun under Biden. We need to be clear about that.
but yeah, so he is acting like Stalin, Pol Pot,
Yeah.
Franco, Mao, and all the dictators who got rid of professors and everything to reduce their country to a pile of blithering idiots. To be fair, the US doesn't have far to go until they
No,
get
they
there.
don't have far to go.
No,
And
really.
I agree with you about that. But you did say that he was known as a KGB asset, and that is
Yeah.
decidedly not true. That is just words that people say to try
Well,
to.
actually, what's interesting is I've named, Pol Pot, Stalin, Franco, Mao. and all of the dictators who got rid of intelligence.
Right.
Putin didn't do that
No, Putin did not get rid of intelligence. No,
at
that's something he
all,
has not done. Nope.
at all. Quite on the contrary.
Putin, actually, the Russian universities are considered some of the best in the world, and their doctors
What?
are people are
Yeah,
targeting their doctors to bring them to other countries because
yeah,
their scientific research is so far advanced.
exactly. So whereas Putin can be called a dictator without batting an eyelid,
He can, yeah.
yeah, what he's doing is he's making Russia great again.
Yeah, and that's what my guest last night said, that he has done incredible things for Russia. They don't like him because of other reasons, but Russia
Yeah,
is in much better shape than it ever
yeah.
was. And just
So
let's
he's a
give this,
dictator. Yeah, he doesn't like
sure,
opponents. Duh. Yeah.
yeah, Russia is in great shape right now. And I think that it would be a big mistake for Europe to get involved in a war with Russia. If they do that, they're the biggest friggin' idiots on the planet. Or if you look at what they profit from, and this is something that was broken down really clearly by, I'm forgetting his name, a journalist who was on Joe Rogan. All of the people who want war profit from war. They profit from it. They have husbands, they have brothers, they have people involved in the weapons and arms industry, just like what's her name? That Ursula von Linden. Her husband profited greatly from the vaccines that the EU bought for COVID. That was a conflict of interest in a huge way. And she should have been removed from office, but she can't be because she was never elected. She's part of this EU commission. So we can't vote her out. I don't know how we get rid of that monster, but that monster is a warmonger because she profits from war. Just like Hillary Clinton has major investments in war. And she was always a warmonger as Secretary of State because she made money every time that happened. And a lot, I think much of the world right now are politicians. I don't think they're fooled. I think they're all about their own personal gain. And if they invest in the war machine, they become warmongers. And this is true for all of them.
But it's funny how I have made this sudden realization that that is an epiphany for me. I've had an epiphany that whereas Trump is trying to dumb down his country
Yeah,
actively, trying
actively.
to, I mean, he's he's getting rid of education.
Hmm.
He's getting
He's not
rid of
getting rid of
intel.
education, but you can still be educated. But education was in a shambles before Trump. Let's be honest; it
It's
has
true.
been for the past
Yeah,
20 years.
it has been for the last 40 years. I mean, you know, I was reading yesterday somebody's comment on a post. I don't remember which post, but they were saying, we study calculus age, I don't remember what he said, 14, 15, or something like this. And my first thought was, well, you don't live in the US, because I can tell you that even in the late 70s, we did not study calculus in high school. Oh boy, we did
No,
not study calculus. When I moved in 1977 from France to California to San Diego, okay, I can tell you my math level was 2 years ahead of the American math level. I came from France, and I I caught up with my math level at uni. Everything I did, I got to the US age 15. So I did sophomore, junior, and senior in the United
right,
States. Okay, 77, 77 to 78, 78 to 79, and 79 to 80. I graduated in 1980. Okay, so I did sophomore, junior, and senior. And in the last 2 years, uh, um, junior and senior. Is he all right?
Yeah, he's got this new way of sleeping, which always makes me look at him. He lays on his back with his head on the pillow, with his feet in the air.
Uh, and the last 2 years were at a private school that
Hmm.
cost quite a bit of money. And there, the math levels had already shot up from the state school I had been in. But none of these schools, all the way to when I graduated, reached the level that I had when I showed up in 1977. It was only when I went to uni and surprisingly did not start with Math 101, but went straight to Math 2 something. Okay, that is where I caught up. That is where I caught up. When I say I caught up with what I would have learned in junior level in France.
Yeah, I had some interesting experiences with education, and I remember going to UC Berkeley and having a literature class, and the teacher gave us the reading list for the year at the beginning of the class, and I went to the teacher and said, "I've read all those." What? What do you mean? Did you read? Was it part of high school for you? I said, "No, it was part of grade school for me, but it didn't come from the school. It came from my mother." What? But your mother had you reading the Odyssey? I said, "Yeah, the Iliad, the Odyssey, A War and Peace, etc." Yeah, my mother had me read these things. Well, I mean, I don't know what to say. I said, "Well, I can read them again. I can certainly participate in the class, or is there maybe another class?" And she went to, I don't know, not the dean, but the scheduling person, and said, "He's read all my books on my reading list. He read them when he was in grade school." She was upset with me for having read what she felt was beyond the level of my comprehension. And she said that multiple times, that I shouldn't have read them because I clearly didn't understand them. So it was decided that they would test me on these works. Now, mind you, I had read these when I was in sixth, seventh, and eighth grade. And it had been a number of years, and they decided to give me a test on these works to see what I recalled, remembered, etc., in order to see if I could pass the course. And I scored a 91%,
Yeah.
which was a good grade. And so they did move me into a different class, which I loved, which was called the oral tradition, that talked about how things spread orally, true, untrue, nursery rhyme, etc., and where these all of the ring around the rosy, pocket full of posy, ashes, ashes, we all fall down. Cremations during the plague, and they felt that the posy was protecting them. Kids would dance around the corpses, thinking that somehow they were protected by putting things in their pockets, and then that's where that horrible nursery rhyme came
I
from.
know, I know, I know, I know.
And so that class fascinated me because I learned something in it.
Yeah, it
And
would have fascinated me.
um, so I ended up, graduating from college in 2 years rather than four. And that was not because of my education. My education was abysmal. It was because of my mother, who was a self-taught woman, just like Lincoln read the law in order to become a lawyer and eventually a statesman. My mother was self-taught. She did not have the benefit of a college education, but she was a woman who decided she was going to learn anyway. And she did, and she taught me anyway, much better than any teacher could do. But my math is still terrible. I cannot do calculus or algebra. I wrote on the final of my algebra test, X is a porno movie. I don't know what you want from me.
Yeah, you see, I at uni, I never graduated from uni.
Right.
I did 5 years, and most of my classes were incomplete. I got an I.
Okay.
Uh, The reason I got incomplete was I went to the classes, I did all the homework, I was doing
Right.
just fine, thank you very much. I refused to take the final.
I
Okay,
understand that.
there was no way. I wanted to learn. and I had learned, but there was no way they were putting me under the kind of pressure just for one test to count for whatever, a quarter or half, a third of my grade. Okay. I learned, I knew I wasn't going to sit through their test. And so
I've
most of
done
my,
that with certain things. I've audited classes just to learn something, not to be tested on it.
yeah. So I turned in all my papers. I turned it, and then I had the teacher say, I don't understand why you would have aced it. And I said, yeah, but I don't take that kind of pressure. You know,
Yeah, I think that
I'm,
kind of pressure is wrong. If the teacher knew you would have aced it, she could have given you the grade anyway. I mean, seriously.
yeah, I don't care, you know. Heidi went to a university, Maastricht University, where her
Right.
courses were 6 weeks. And that's how they did the courses. They were 6 weeks long. And so they did have, I believe they had a final test, but it was right there after 6 weeks. So you didn't have time to forget the information that you'd learned in September for June.
Well, that's funny because I'm taking Spanish classes now, and yesterday he brought up a segment from the first week, and I recalled some of it, but there were several words where I had to redefine them because I'd forgotten them.
Exactly. So Maastricht University do 6 week courses, and you do your, you know, you do your and you do it 6 weeks, never mentioned again. You never
Yeah,
have to take a test on them again. Okay.
I'm
They're
for that. I'm not a
specific.
fan of testing.
Me
Um,
neither,
I do better with
obviously.
oral tests than written tests because I have good verbal skills and good recall. But when I'm asked to write something, I kind of seize up. It's tough for me.
Yeah, I will not. I will not. I mean, I never have. I've taken a large number of open university courses, and I've done the whole courses, went on the week study to um, Edinburgh, St. Andrews University, the week in, it was in geology, fascinating course, loved it. Never took the final exam. No, I will not take this kind of pressure and stress. So most of my, so I never got a diploma. Plus, I never got a diploma in at San Diego State because at the time I would have needed to take Math 101, Math 102, Math 201, Math
Oh
202.
yeah.
And of course, I started with Math 245 because I already knew what 1 plus 1 was, and I wasn't going to revisit it. So they would never have given me a math, or my other one was writing, uh, creative writing. Um, I didn't take 101. And I went to sociology class and I sat in, and first day, and the guy started his discussion about how great Karl Marx was. So I got up and left. In
Well, I wouldn't say Karl Marx was great. Karl Marx was interesting.
Interesting, yes, but I am not going to have some kind of professor turn around and badmouth any form of self development because he believes that communism is the best thing in the world. So, yeah, no, out.
Yeah. Well,
So,
communism, socialism, communism, what seems to work best is a certain amount of socialist policy within a democratic government. I mean, Germany has some safety nets for people so that they don't have the homeless population of India or the US. And I think
mhm.
that is something to be applauded.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. I'm
But
not throwing it all out the window.
anytime something goes too far in one direction, you lose the balance. And then there's no way to pay for what you've created.
Yeah, like for instance, a lot of East Germans miss the communist time
Oh, I
because
know.
because they all had a job, they all had security. Eventually, they got a car. Eventually, they got a phone, and so on and so forth. But they never, ever had freedom of speech, the right to travel, the right to better themselves, etc., so on and so forth. So, you
Yeah,
know,
you didn't even choose where you went on vacation. You were given a vacation, a good vacation, but the government assigned you a vacation. So they could say you are going to Lake Bolton in Hungary for a month and you're staying here, or you're going to Moscow and you're staying here. You didn't even have the freedom to choose your own vacation.
and a lot of people are very happy. We're still friends, very good friends with the people who lived. Some of them still do on the street we lived in London. Okay, and we call each other the Herneys because it was Herne Road, and there's four families, and two of them still live on Herne Road. And Adam was saying the other day, what if we still lived there? What if we still had our house there? Well, it goes without saying that if we still lived on Herne Road, we definitely would not have had all the adventures that we've had. And our children would certainly have had a different life as well. Now, there are people who are like Anne and Sally who are incredibly happy to still be living in Herne Road, to still have their house, to still have their children come back to the family home once in a while and stuff like that. And there's a lot of people like that. And I'm not saying that Anna or Sally are, um, boring people.
They're
No,
just different.
they're just different. And I adore both of them. Um, and Rebecca moved out of Herne Road, but she moved to a bigger house here in Teddington. And she stayed there since she moved. So she's been in her new house for the last 20 years. And we live in a studio in Berlin. Okay, so we've like downgraded the size of our flat. I mean, we really couldn't live in anything smaller than we live now, although we could probably try. But anyway,
But you travel the world.
yeah, we do. We travel
And
the
that,
world.
see, for me, a comfortable life or an adventurous life, I choose adventure like you.
Yeah. And, now we have, well, Heidi, who is very happy, and rightfully so, here in England. She lives in our flat. She has a lovely, steady job, and she's very good at it. She has a wonderful, steady boyfriend, and she still won't get married. That is a bone of contention between us, but whatever. It's her life, her choice. She'd laugh to hear me say that. She's running a very happy life, and they would like to buy a house soon, you know, for their first home, and maybe their last, I don't know, or maybe they'll go bigger, but that kind of thing. So she's going in that direction, which is perfectly fine. you
There's
know
nothing
she'll
wrong with that. Different
she'll be
people,
the one, yeah, she'll be the
yeah,
one to host all the Christmas dinners, I'll tell you that much. And then we
yeah.
have Clara, who lives in our building, lives also in a studio flat, is now going on to speaking three languages fluently and traveling the globe. Now, I'm not
Yeah,
saying Heidi doesn't travel the globe, because Heidi spent 3 months working with dolphins in Australia. She spent 6 months in Malaysia. Last year, she took a month off to travel in South America. So she travels a lot, and she needs
but
to
different
travel.
the I get it. Different things work for different people, and none
Yeah.
of us should be made to fit into a mold. I would have absolutely despised living in Soviet Berlin. Yes, you had a job. Yes, you had an income. Yes, you had an apartment. You didn't pay rent. You didn't pay utilities. Eventually, you got what you needed. That would have driven me crazy. And I have been in some really tough situations and, not always economically successful after my move to Germany, but I still wouldn't change it because I've never been bored.
Very true.
I
You
don't
know,
want a boring life, even if it's satisfying.
Now we went through some interesting economical situations. The children were born at a time when we were very well off. when they were teenagers, we were marginally less well off. So by the time they got to be teenagers, they started learning the value of money. I'm glad
Mhm.
they didn't have that when they were young, because that would have frightened them quite a bit. Now, Clara is still slightly traumatized by all the times when Adam said, "That's it, I don't have any work, we're going to starve to death," which was always false, but it, it
Yeah, no, I grew up in a house where my mother at one point worked three jobs to keep us fed. And I am to this day a food hoarder when something goes on sale at a good discount. So I will fill the cupboard with, my favorite brand of pasta. Oh, it's usually this price. I know it's this price. I'll get 10. And so I always have more food in the house than I need of certain items because when there's a sale, my mother used to do that. When there's a sale, you buy it and you fill the house with it and then you make do. You make meals around it. I remember once LaChoy, did you ever eat LaChoy Chinese noodles, those deep fried crispy things from a can?
no.
They were called chow mein noodles, and you essentially dumped them over beef stew with canned vegetables. They weren't chow mein noodles at all. They didn't resemble chow mein. It was American crap, right? But I remember them going on sale for 29 cents a can, and they were usually 59 cents a can. And we bought 20 cans. I ate those crappy noodles on so many things. They weren't even good. They were just cheap carbohydrates and salt, but they were on sale. And so we poured them on this, we poured them on that. We had them with this, we had them with that, because they were an affordable food item and they did make you feel full. You take a cheap carbohydrate, throw some fat and salt on it, it's satisfying. And that's, the allure of junk food. Um,
But now we're all right again. We're
yeah,
comfortable without being stupid, but we're comfortable. And my husband and my children, because I, on the other hand, grew up with whatever I wanted. Well,
right.
not whatever I wanted, I got, because my parents weren't like that.
Your
But
parents were like that, no. But your
no,
parents
but
made a decent living. Your father
yes,
came from,
exactly,
worked
exactly,
incredibly hard.
exactly. And my mother's family was all right. But so now that we're doing all right again, more or less, the kids are like, oh, don't spend this. Oh, Heidi said she wanted gold loop earrings. So, which she could have very well bought herself, but I decided to
Right.
buy it for her. I went to H. Samuel, and I think I bought her gold loop earrings for £129. And she went, "Oh, that's so expensive." I didn't have the heart to tell her that I had seen infinitely more expensive one in another shop that I was going to get her. And I got her the ones that were only, in my view, £129. And for her to have spent that much on a pair of
On earrings
earrings, yeah.
is a
And
lot.
so my kids are now, very careful with money, which is good
Good for
because
them.
I'm not
And
at
I,
all.
I am, but I've never had a choice. I am drinking something that is actually making me feel immeasurably better. Before we went on the air today, I felt horrible, like I was going to die from some strange disease. And I went to the pharmacy and I talked to the pharmacist here and I said, "Is there anything you can recommend? I feel like I've been hit by a truck. Every muscle aches. This is going on. This is going on. And I don't want to get sick." Right. She gave me this powder in an envelope, and she said to sip it slowly over the course of a couple of hours, and I would feel better. And I read the ingredients, and it's high concentrations of vitamin A, which you don't hear a lot about, vitamin D, vitamin C, and aspirin. That's it. And
Actually, getting onto the subject of vitamin A,
yes, it's working. Anyway, I'm feeling much better. I mean, we
first of
started,
all,
I
I'm
felt like
delighted.
I was ready to just go to bed and forget about my class this afternoon. Now I'm going, oh, well, I'll make it.
Well, it's funny that you should mention vitamin A,
Right.
because, as you know, I'm sure, in Texas, there is a bad case of measles going on.
Yeah, there have been a lot of measles in Texas. That's correct.
That's correct. And one of the reasons there's been a lot of cases of measles in Texas is because these children were not vaccinated,
Right.
okay, by anti-vax parents. Well done. Now, our dear Secretary of Health, RFK, who, as you know, is not a doctor.
Right. RFK.
Yeah. Has said that vitamin A is very good to combat measles. So now we are seeing hospitals in Texas filling up with children with measles who, on top of everything else, have vitamin A poisoning. So well done, RFK.
Um, hmm. Yeah, I don't know that much about it because again, I've been kind of out of it this week. But vitamin A is helping me. I don't know. I
Yeah,
can't
but you're
speak to
not
vitamin A and
probably
measles
not
because
overdosing on it.
no, I'm not overdosing on it. It's a very small amount. It's 400 milligram of
Yeah.
vitamin A, 1,000 of C, and 1,000 of D. So
Okay.
I couldn't overdose with this.
No, you
Um,
couldn't. But yeah, I mean, okay, I know that technically he never said it, but it's like Trump advocating drinking bleach to fight COVID.
he never said it. You need to stop that.
I know, but it's this
He
kind
said,
of
I
thing.
know that bleach kills the virus. That's what he said.
Yeah. But RFK saying that vitamin A will cure them from the measles is making a whole bunch of parents stuffing their children with vitamin A, and now you get vitamin A overdose, and their
Yeah,
liver is
I
shot.
did. I mean, everything is processed through our liver from marijuana to vitamin A.
Yeah, and these are children whose livers are shot now because RFK, who doesn't know, well, doesn't know anything.
Okay. I just fact checked this one. Robert F. Kennedy did not explicitly say that vitamin A cures measles in any way, shape, or form. His statements on the topic have sparked debate due to their phrasing and emphasis, leading some to interpret them as a stronger role for vitamin A than was explicitly stated. And this is one of his biggest critics, MSNBC. All right. Um, what Kennedy wrote is that studies have found that vitamin A can dramatically reduce measles mortality. The CDC updated its guidance to include vitamin A as part of supportive care under physician supervision. So the CDC agreed with him. All right. The prior to Kennedy being in this position, um, Texas doctors did a study and got very good results for treatments with vitamin A, along with cod liver oil and budesonide, a steroid, and clarithromycin, an antibiotic. The Texas doctors tied vitamin A to reduce mortality, not stating that it cured the infection, but that those treatments reduced mortality. The World Health Organization agreed with these conclusions. Kennedy's language, dramatically reduced measles mortality, aligns with the studies done in 2010, showing a 62% mortality reduction in populations that were treated this way. But it was misleading only because the US press made it misleading and attributed him with quotes that he did not state, causing parents to believe that vitamin A was a cure. So it was the press that actually misquoted him, said that vitamin A was a cure, and all he said was it can reduce mortality in the correct and accurate specific levels.
Did
It
he
was
say that?
interpreted.
Did he say
Yep.
in the correct and accurate levels?
I'm reading from his book right here. Reduces mortality in the correct and
Wait, wait,
accurate
wait. He
specific
wrote a
levels.
medical book?
But yeah, he wrote a book about vaccines, and this is part of it. I have it online so I can Google. We have a transcript
RFK,
of every
Dr.
statement he has made about it. And if you quote something beyond this, it was created by the press.
Okay,
And
let
this
me
has
get this.
happened with RFK many, many times, where the press, he said one thing and the press has said, he didn't say it. So what's happening is that something he did not say, quoted by the press, is being used by parents to justify a stronger amount of treatment that they would normally give. So the press is at fault here, not Kennedy.
Okay.
And this happens with
Can we
him
go
all the
back?
time. Yeah.
Yes. Can we go back a second here? So
Yeah.
Dr. Robert F. Kennedy wrote a medical book?
No, he did not write a medical book. He wrote a book quoting other studies. And his quote on the study was vitamin A can dramatically reduce measles mortality if given in the correct and accurate levels.
Okay.
He even goes on to talk about the study where overdosing can happen on vitamin A. So
Okay. No. I'm
it
still
was,
trying to process him writing a book about anything medical.
he
I,
didn't write a
I
book about medical. He quoted studies. Other
yeah.
and there's
Yeah.
people do that all the time. Non-medical people write about studies that are done. This is not unusual. Kennedy is not
Uh
unique in this,
no, okay, but as you know, more than most, uh many studies find different results.
depending on who pays for them.
Exactly. So one can
Right.
take one study with one result and dismiss all the other studies, even though that one study was later. Okay. Um, the reason they won't give vaccines is because vaccines create autism. Well, that's been debunked.
Well, no, it hasn't been debunked. That's what's interesting. It's never been debunked. We were told by the press again that it was debunked from day one. It's never been debunked, but it's never been proven. We know that autism rates are very high in vaccinated populations. We know that autism rates are very low in unvaccinated populations like the Amish. No study has ever been done, none ever, that proves it one way or another. None ever. So it's never been debunked. It's never been proven. It's right now. It's just a theory. It's a theory that vitamin A is, or that vaccines cause autism. It's a theory that there's no connection. Both are theories. Neither has been proven.
Take the Amish.
Yeah, take the Amish.
Take the Amish, who, by the way, I have great respect for, and they're absolutely more than welcome to believe and do anything they want. Would you say that it could be a possibility that there's interbreeding done in Amish?
There is absolutely interbreeding done in Amish populations. Not as much as in other populations, but it does exist. Yes.
Yeah, not as much as, say, a Virginia Woods population. I mean, the Blue Ridge Mountain population. I agree
Yeah,
with you.
I mean, there are many other
Yeah.
populations, but we are now 1 minute over time. So let's
Oh
pick
my
this
gosh.
up next week. And we have to say
We're afraid
goodbye.
we'd have nothing to discuss.
Well, it was good that you started us off with something because it led somewhere.
There we
So
go.